Welcome, dear listeners, to another journey into the realm of myths and timeless wonders of the ancient world. Tonight, we sail beyond the horizon of history, where gods shaped land, sea, and the creatures that roam them. This is not a tale of battles or storms, but a story of creativity, imagination, and the beauty of invention. Our guide in this tale is Poseidon, lord of the seas, master of waves, and brother of Zeus and Hades. You may know him as the bringer of storms, the shaker of the earth, and the ruler of endless blue waters. But there is another side to Poseidon, a quieter side, one that dreamed of more than oceans and tempests. In his heart was a desire to craft something new, something alive, to give as a gift to the mortal world. From his thoughts and dreams came not a fish, nor a bird, but a creature that would gallop across the land. A creature born from sea foam and wind, fierce yet gentle, swift yet noble, the symbol of freedom itself. This is the story of Poseidon and the birth of horses, a tale where imagination meets the rhythm of creation. So sit back, let your mind drift like a ship upon calm waters, and step with me into this ancient legend. Poseidon. His name echoes like the crash of waves against ancient cliffs, eternal and unyielding in strength. He was the brother of Zeus, the ruler of the sky, and Hades, the keeper of the underworld's shadowed halls. Together, they divided the world after the great victory over the Titans, each taking a domain of power. Zeus claimed the heavens and the thunder. Hades chose the silent depths of the earth. Poseidon turned to the sea. It was an endless kingdom, stretching beyond sight, filled with mysteries, treasures, and the pulse of life itself. But Poseidon was more than a ruler with a trident. He was a force, unpredictable as the ocean he commanded. The Greeks knew him as Earth-shaker, the one whose steps could tremble mountains and ripple across cities. When storms gathered suddenly on bright days, sailors whispered his name and prayed for mercy from the waves. Yet, for all his might, Poseidon was not only destruction or wrath. He was also creation, rhythm, and renewal. The sea itself is not just a danger. It is a cradle of life, a giver of fish, salt, and the songs of the deep. The ancient Greeks lived close to the water. Their cities and harbors grew strong because of ships and voyages. To them, Poseidon was not distant. He was present in every voyage, every storm, every calm stretch of water. Fishermen left offerings on the shore. Sailors carved his image on prows to ask for protection from tempests. Horses, too, were sacred to him. Their wild energy, like the galloping of waves, belonged to his spirit. It may seem strange to link horses with the ocean, but the Greeks saw a connection in their untamed freedom. Waves charged like hooves across the sand, rolling in strength, breaking with thunder, retreating and returning. The power of the sea and the grace of the horse reflected each other, wild yet harmonious, fierce yet noble. Poseidon embodied both sides. His beard was foamed with salt. His chariot rolled across the sea with seahorses. Legends tell that his palace lay deep beneath the sea, walls of coral, floors of pearl, glittering like starlight. There, the god of the sea listened to the songs of dolphins, the laughter of nymphs, and the hush of tides. But Poseidon was not confined to his underwater throne. He roamed the lands, seeking balance and meaning. He was restless. He desired more than storms, quakes, or crashing waves. He longed for creation and legacy. For while Zeus shaped law and order, and Hades ruled the silence of endings, Poseidon yearned to inspire. In his heart grew a vision, to craft something living, something noble, a creature tied both to land and sea. This was the seed of the story you are about to hear. The birth of the horse, a gift shaped by the ocean god. To understand it, we must first see Poseidon not as a destroyer, but as a dreamer, a creator with purpose. His power was raw and vast, yet his imagination was just as deep as the blue waters he ruled endlessly. This is where our tale begins. Not with thunder, not with storms, but with a spark of wonder in a god's heart. And in this spark, a legend would rise, carried across centuries, galloping into the memory of humankind. The ancient Greeks lived in a land of rugged mountains and shining seas, where every path led toward the water. From small islands to mighty ports, the sea was their lifeline, carrying stories, goods, and dreams across horizons. Ships were their wings, carved from timber, guided by sails, and steered by courage into the arms of distant lands. The sea brought fish for their tables, salt for their food, and wealth from trade that built bustling harbors and towns. Every Greek city looked toward the water with both hope and caution, knowing the sea could bless or betray. On calm days, it sparkled like glass, gentle and kind, carrying merchants swiftly from shore to distant markets. On stormy nights, it roared like a beast, with waves crashing down and winds tearing sails into ribbons of fear. To the Greeks, the sea was alive, a breathing force, unpredictable, vast and deserving of both awe and respect. And in the heart of this mystery stood Poseidon, not as an idea, but as a presence felt with every tide. He was the unseen passenger on every voyage, the whisper in the wind, the strength beneath the rolling surf. Sailors poured wine into the waves before departure, hoping to please the god who held their fate in his hand. Farmers far from the coast also looked to him, for he shook the ground, splitting earth to remind them of power. Every prayer, every chant, carried Poseidon's name, calling him not just ruler, but guardian and punisher alike. For Greeks, honoring Poseidon was not about fear alone. It was about recognizing balance in a fragile world. The sea gave them fish, trade, and journeys. Without it, their lives would shrink to small valleys and dry hills. But the sea could also sweep everything away, just as quickly as it provided abundance and shining opportunity. To live in Greece was to live with the sea as a neighbor, constant and unpredictable, like a god at the gate. And so they told stories, not to explain only, but to feel closer to this force, to understand its shifting moods. Poseidon was not distant marble in temples. He was living, his trident stirring currents, his horses racing waves. In their festivals, they honored him with games, races, and songs, celebrating both land and water together. Chariots thundered in dusty arenas, echoing the rhythm of hooves and waves, bound by Poseidon's dual gift. Children grew up hearing tales of his power, not as punishment, but as lessons in humility and respect. The sea did not belong to mortals. It belonged to the god who shaped it, and mortals were guests upon its face. Every coastline bore reminders, shrines by the harbors, carved stones upon cliffs, prayers whispered in salt air. Even far inland, where waves could not reach, earthquakes reminded people of Poseidon's roaming presence. His trident was more than a weapon. It was a symbol of control, order, and the pulse that linked earth to sea. Thus, the Greeks lived in constant conversation with Poseidon, sometimes in fear, sometimes in gratitude. They built ships not just with skill, but with reverence, knowing each voyage depended on the god's favor. And in this dance between mortals and sea, Poseidon grew not only as ruler, but as companion of daily life. This bond between Greeks and the ocean shaped their myths, their art, their prayers, and their deepest identity. Without the sea, they could not be themselves. Without Poseidon, the sea was a stranger, vast and unknowable. So they wove him into every journey, every harbor song, every story told by firelight beside the restless waves. To understand Poseidon is to understand the Greeks themselves, for their spirit was carved by salt, wind, and tide. Poseidon was mighty, yet inside his restless heart, there stirred a longing that the sea alone could not fill. He had waves and storms, earthquakes and tempests, but he dreamed of something gentler, something new. The god of the sea was never still. His spirit surged like tides, forever seeking, forever reaching for creation. He watched Zeus command the skies with thunder, admired Hades' steady rule of the underworld's silent halls. Each brother had his domain complete, but Poseidon yearned for a gift that would outlast storms and quakes. It was not enough to shake the ground or crash the waves. He desired beauty, balance, and lasting wonder. When he gazed at the horizon, he felt it. A vision, faint as morning mist, yet strong as the tide within him. He imagined a creature of power and grace, swift as the wind, free as the spray, noble as the cresting wave. The thought made him restless. The idea churned within him like a storm waiting to break upon the shore. Poseidon walked the coasts, watching foam scatter across sand, listening to the roaring voice of the deep. He saw patterns in the waves, rhythms that reminded him of hooves striking earth, steady and unstoppable. The sea spoke to him, and he listened, hearing whispers of creation, calling him to shape something alive. He did not want a creature bound to water alone. He wanted one to bridge sea and land, strength and spirit. In his mind, he shaped muscles strong as tides, legs swift as winds, a mane flowing like storm-born foam. He saw eyes bright with fire, yet calm with wisdom, a being fierce and free, yet gentle and enduring. The gods often created wonders, but Poseidon wanted this to be his mark, a symbol to the world of men. So he began to dream more deeply, letting imagination swell, as if the ocean itself lent him inspiration. This restless desire was not about pride alone. It was about leaving behind something that could inspire. As he wandered, the waves broke against the rocks, and in each crash, he felt the beat of hooves within. It was as if the land and sea together urged him onward, whispering, urging, guiding his divine vision. Mortals prayed to him for safety, but in these moments Poseidon thought not of storms, but of creation. He wanted to offer them more than protection, more than fear. He wanted to offer them wonder and gift. The restless god turned his gaze inward, to the deep heart of his own imagination, vast as his kingdom. He felt the power that moved oceans was also capable of shaping life, of forming beauty from strength. And so the god of the sea stood at the edge of his realm, trident in hand, vision burning like sunrise. He was more than a ruler of storms, more than earthshaker. He was a dreamer, ready to sculpt a marvel. Every crash of the wave became a heartbeat of creation. Every gust of wind, a whisper of what could be. Poseidon's restless spirit was no longer a burden. It was a fire, a guiding light toward a wondrous birth. And though the world knew him for tempests, within him grew the promise of a creature yet unseen. Thus began the stirring of his greatest act of imagination, born not from rage, but from longing and hope. It was the beginning of a legend, where the god of the sea would shape freedom itself upon the land. The restless spirit of Poseidon was no curse. It was the spark that would soon give life to the horse. The world of the gods was a place of endless invention. where every deity sought to leave a mark upon creation. Athena offered wisdom and gave mortals the olive tree, symbol of peace, sustenance, and the strength of growth. Demeter blessed the earth with fertile fields and grain, ensuring that humanity would never starve in barren soil. Apollo brought music and light, his lyre guiding hearts, while Artemis guarded the forests and wild creatures. Each god or goddess had a gift, not only for power, but as a symbol of their spirit, their bond with mortals. The gifts were not always grand or fierce. Some were quiet, simple, yet filled with meaning that lasted ages. Athena's olive tree was not mighty like thunder, but it offered food, wood, and oil, a treasure of daily life. It was this idea of legacy that stirred Poseidon, for he saw how the gods left symbols beyond their domains. He wished to give something enduring, not only fear from storms or trembling ground, but beauty and wonder. The other gods often reminded him that creation was not easy, for every gift carried weight and consequence. A gift from a god was not just an object. It was a bond, a sign of divine presence woven into mortal lives. Poseidon knew this truth well. To give was to share part of oneself, to place spirit into the world forever. And he longed for this connection, a chance to be remembered not only as Earthshaker, but as creator of life. In councils upon Mount Olympus, gods debated gifts, arguing which brought more honor or greater legacy. Poseidon sometimes listened, sometimes quarreled, but in his heart, he was already shaping dreams of creation. He envied Athena's wisdom, Apollo's harmony, Demeter's harvest. But envy became a spark of determination. If they could craft beauty for mortals, then he too could leave behind something noble, fierce, and eternal. But unlike others, Poseidon's domain was wild and untamed, forever in motion, restless like his own spirit. His creation could not be still, could not be delicate. It had to echo waves, storms, and unyielding freedom. As he pondered, he thought of the sea's rhythm, its power and grace, and how it mirrored mortal strength. He thought of waves that leapt upon the shore, swift and strong, retreating only to rise again with greater force. He imagined that rhythm made flesh, that surge of energy given form to live and run upon the earth. This vision was not born of competition alone. It was born of longing to belong among the givers of gifts. Poseidon desired to be seen not just as a god of fury, but as one whose imagination could shape beauty. The world of the gods was not always harmonious, yet each creation was a thread that bound heaven to earth. Poseidon wanted his own thread, woven not in thunder or harvest, but in freedom and movement unrestrained. And so he turned inward, deep into the ocean of his thoughts, searching for a gift that could define him. He was not content to rule storms. He wanted to give mortals something to cherish, a companion of the land. The gods above might laugh, but Poseidon carried within him the vastness of the sea, endless and creative. From that vastness came his resolve, a decision to shape life itself, drawn from his restless imagination. This was not a challenge, not a contest. It was a calling, an urge too strong to silence, as steady as the tide. In the realm of the gods, where creation defined legacy, Poseidon was ready to step forward with his gift. And what he dreamed was not bound by water, nor chained to storms, but destined to gallop free across the earth. The stage of divine creation was wide and varied, but Poseidon's heart burned with his vision above all. He would create not a tool, not a tree, not a harvest, but a living marvel, born of the sea yet running on land. And thus, in the world of divine invention, Poseidon's restless dream began to take its true shape at last. Poseidon's mind turned often to the sea, for within its endless motions he found sparks of inspiration and wonder. He would watch the waves curl and break, rolling forward with power, retreating with grace, alive with constant rhythm. Each crest rose like a stallion rearing high, each crash thundered like hooves upon the earth in untamed freedom. The sea was his mirror, fierce yet beautiful, and from its movements a vision stirred brighter within his heart. He imagined that the same energy could live not only in water, but upon the solid ground of the wide earth. If waves could race endlessly toward the shore, then why not a creature that could race across valleys and plains? This thought consumed him. He walked the coastlines, listening to the songs of tides as if they whispered guidance. The gulls cried above him, the winds rushed past, and still his mind returned to the vision of swift creation. He imagined speed that rivaled the wind, strength that rivaled the tides, and a spirit wild as the open horizon. The god closed his eyes, and in silence he felt shapes forming, shadows of something not yet alive, but destined. He pictured legs stretched in motion, muscles carrying boundless energy, manes flowing like surf in the storm. The beauty of the sea could not be captured in nets or shells alone. It needed form, movement, and freedom. Poseidon longed to see his dream not only in imagination, but alive, racing beneath the sun, breathing air of land. This dream became his obsession, for he knew that without creation, his restless spirit would never be at peace. The gods often shaped wonders as symbols. Poseidon wished for more, a companion for mortals and for himself, a being not confined to sea or sky, but one that stood between, bridging waves and earth in noble form. He drew his trident in the sand, tracing outlines of what he saw in his thoughts, a sketch upon the shoreline. The water lapped at his feet, as if eager to join the work, as if the sea itself wished to share the vision. He whispered to the waves, testing names, imagining calls, for a creature must have identity as well as form. The wind howled like laughter, as if encouraging him onward, as if creation itself delighted in his restless dream. Poseidon's eyes shone with determination, brighter than lightning, deeper than the endless blue beneath the waves. He was not shaping terror this time. He was shaping wonder. And the gods themselves felt whispers of his work. For in Olympus, even the faintest stir of creation was felt. And Poseidon's vision was no small imagination. It was a spark strong enough to ripple across eternity, destined to live in myth and memory of humankind. Every tide that struck the shore carried the beat of hooves. Every gust of wind echoed gallops across the earth. The natural world itself seemed to wait for him, as if longing to see the vision born from his divine heart. And so the spark of inspiration grew into fire, no longer faint, but blazing bright within Poseidon's restless soul. He had found his gift, though still unborn, though still a dream. Its presence was as real as the tide itself. Not a weapon, not a storm, not a quake, but a living creature, filled with the rhythm of land and sea alike. Poseidon's spark was not a fleeting thought. It was the dawn of creation, a promise of freedom yet to come. The waves continued to rise and fall, singing to him, urging him onward until the vision became his destiny. And in that moment, Poseidon knew. The birth of this creature would change the world forever. Poseidon's vision was alive in his heart, yet he knew that imagination alone could not bring a creature to life. The gods who shaped gifts before him had poured power into their creations, weaving divine breath into mortal form. Athena's olive tree grew only because her wisdom blessed its roots, her essence feeding it with strength and meaning. Demeter's fields thrived because her spirit lingered in every stalk of grain, filling the harvest with eternal renewal. So Poseidon understood that his dream must not be only an image, but a part of himself, a living fragment of divinity. He stood upon the rocky cliffs, his trident glowing in the setting sun, and the sea surged with restless energy. The waves seemed eager, ready to lend their motion, their strength, their grace to whatever the god would command. He lifted his trident high, and the ocean answered, rising in towering swells that shimmered with silver foam. The earth trembled faintly under his feet, not with destruction, but as if it too awaited the spark of creation. Poseidon called upon the waters, his voice deep as thunder, yet filled with longing instead of wrath. He spoke of freedom, of swiftness, of a companion that would carry the rhythm of the sea onto the land. The tides roared louder, surging toward the shore, as though they too yearned to be shaped into something greater. From the foam of the waves, he drew lines, carving the outline of legs, a body, a form swift and strong. The spray of the ocean twisted and danced, forming shapes that leapt upward like visions caught in the wind. With each sweep of his trident, the figure grew clearer, head lifted, chest proud, mane flowing like storm waves. The sound of the surf became the sound of hooves, drumming against unseen ground, echoing across the coast. The sea poured its spirit into the figure, giving it movement, speed, and the endless energy of the tides. Yet it needed more than water and power. It needed earth for strength, air for breath, and spirit for life. Poseidon struck the shore, and from the sand rose bones of stone, strong and steady, a frame for the body. He called the winds, and they rushed down, filling the form with breath, whistling through its chest like a song. The waves clothed it in flesh, sleek and graceful, while the foam became a flowing mane and tail of white. The creature shone under the fading sun, a vision of beauty unlike anything the world had seen before. But it still stood silent, unmoving, an image waiting for the final gift to awaken it fully to life. Poseidon knew that creation demanded sacrifice, a piece of his own essence to bind it forever to existence. He touched his trident to the heart of the figure, and in that instant, a spark leapt from him into the form. The creature shuddered, as though startled by the sudden breath of life, and its eyes gleamed with awareness. It stamped the ground, and the earth echoed like thunder, not in fear, but in joy, celebrating its new creation. Poseidon stepped back, awe in his gaze, for he had given shape not only to power, but to beauty unchained. Before him stood the first horse, born of sea, earth, wind, and godly spirit, a marvel of motion and grace. It tossed its head, mane shimmering like silver foam, eyes bright as the deep ocean under moonlight. With a snort, it leapt forward, galloping along the shore, hooves striking sand, echoing like drums of triumph. The waves followed in rhythm, as though the sea itself rejoiced at the freedom of the newborn creature. Poseidon smiled, for his gift was real at last, no longer dream, no longer shadow, but life in glorious motion. And so the first horse was born, carrying the heart of the sea and the spirit of a god within its stride. The horse ran along the shore, its hooves pounding the sand as if the earth itself kept rhythm with its stride. The sea chased it with foamy waves, delighted by the creature that carried its spirit into motion upon the land. Poseidon watched with wonder, for though he had shaped it, the horse moved with a will that seemed its own. Its mane streamed like lightning across the sky, and its breath rose like mist, glowing under the soft evening light. The god had dreamed of power, but what stood before him was more than strength. It was grace, freedom, and beauty. The horse did not bow nor cower, for it was born not to serve, but to run, to live wild, to carry the wind. It circled back, eyes flashing like the ocean depths, meeting Poseidon's gaze with recognition and fiery spirit. In that look, the god knew he had succeeded, not in forging a servant, but in birthing a companion of nature. The horse neighed, a sound both sharp and musical, echoing over the waters, rising higher than the gulls above. It was a cry of existence, a declaration that life had begun, carrying the pride of both sea and sky. Poseidon laughed, a rare sound, deep and warm, echoing with joy as the waves leapt high to join in celebration. The creature's body shimmered as though born from sunlight and foam, both earthly and divine in every line. He reached out his hand, and the horse stepped closer, cautious yet unafraid, as if guided by unseen trust. When Poseidon touched its mane, it felt cool as surf yet strong as rope, woven of foam and wind together. The bond between creator and creation was sealed, not with chains or commands, but with mutual respect. Poseidon whispered softly, words lost to all but the horse, a name forming from the depths of his heart. The horse tossed its head, accepting the sound as its own, carrying the gift of identity into its first dawn. Then, with a joyous kick, it sprang away once more, galloping farther and faster than even the god had dreamed. Its shadow stretched across the sands, long and fluid, merging with the twilight that descended upon the shore. Poseidon followed with his gaze, no longer lord of storm, but witness to something greater than his own power. He had birthed not terror, not destruction, but beauty that carried his essence and yet remained free of his rule. The other gods would surely see this wonder, and each would know that Poseidon had carved a new legacy. Not only ruler of oceans and earthquakes, he was now creator of freedom, the father of creatures untamed. The horse slowed at last, returning to the god, not bound by command, but drawn by connection beyond words. Poseidon placed his trident in the sand, marking the moment when dream had become life under the open sky. The stars began to appear, glittering above as if heavens themselves bore witness to this act of creation. The horse stood still at his side, eyes bright, body strong, its breath a steady rhythm against the night air. The god smiled again, knowing the world had changed, for something new now lived between sea, sky, and earth. It was not only a gift for mortals, but a reminder to the gods themselves of the joy found in creation. The horse stamped its hoof once more, the sound rolling like thunder across the quietening coast. And in that sound, Poseidon heard eternity, the promise that his gift would never be forgotten. The waves whispered in agreement, the winds carried the cry, and the earth welcomed the pounding of hooves. Thus, the horse was not only born but celebrated, a living symbol of freedom, strength, and the heart of the sea. News of Poseidon's creation spread quickly, for nothing born of divine hands could remain hidden from Olympus for long. The winds carried whispers, the sea shared its joy, and soon the gods began to wonder what marvel stirred below. Athena was the first to sense it, her wisdom sharp, her eyes turning toward the coast where waves seemed alive. She descended from her temple, her armor gleaming, not in challenge, but in curiosity, seeking truth in the whispers. From a hill she watched the horse run, swift as thought, graceful as art, and her lips curved into quiet wonder. "This is no storm, no quake," she murmured, "but beauty. Poseidon has crafted something the world will never forget." Soon after came Apollo, drawn by the rhythm of hooves that echoed like music, a song carried upon the wind. He brought his lyre, yet as he played, he paused, realizing the gallop itself was already music made flesh. the sound of freedom, he whispered, smiling, for even the god of music found harmony in the horse's stride. Artemis followed, emerging from the forest, her gaze steady, Hunter's eyes softened by the sight of such grace. She saw not prey, not quarry, but kin to the deer and stag, another child of the wild, untamed and pure. Demeter too arrived, and when she beheld the horse racing across the fields, her heart warmed with joy. For the plow and for the harvest, mortals will treasure this gift, she said, seeing its bond with the earth. Each god or goddess who looked upon the horse felt its power, not of fear, but of inspiration and wonder. Even Hera, often stern, could not deny the beauty that galloped before her, swift as the wind itself. Zeus, Lord of Thunder, looked down from the heights of Olympus and marveled at his brother's creation. No storm he cast could match the horse's spirit, for it was not force but freedom that made it eternal. The gods gathered, watching, each realizing that Poseidon had added a new thread to the fabric of creation. He had not sought war, nor rivalry, but legacy, and the horse was now woven into the world forever. Poseidon stood tall as they arrived, pride in his eyes, yet his voice calm, for he needed no boastful words. "It is not a weapon," he said, "but a gift, a companion to mortals, a marvel born of sea and sky." The horse galloped past the gathering, mane shining, hooves striking, and even the earth seemed to sing. The gods did not argue, nor quarrel, for in that moment, unity replaced pride, wonder replaced envy. For once, Olympus was still, as though even the heavens paused to witness the beauty before them. Athena stepped forward, nodding with respect, and Apollo lowered his lyre, bowing to the rhythm of the horse. Artemis smiled faintly, Demeter clapped her hands in delight, and Zeus himself raised his hand in approval. It was rare for the gods to agree, yet here they did, for the horse carried a spirit beyond all dispute. Poseidon felt his heart swell, not with victory, but with peace, knowing he had left a gift worthy of eternity. The horse neighed, circling the gods, unafraid, for it knew no master, only the freedom it was born to live. And as the stars rose high above, Olympus itself seemed brighter, filled with harmony instead of thunder. The gods departed in time, but the memory remained, and the horse became a symbol to all who saw it. It was not only Poseidon's creation, but a treasure of the world, blessed by the eyes of heaven. And so the horse, born of sea and spirit, found its place not only on earth, but in the heart of Olympus. Mortals soon discovered the gift, for the word of the horse traveled faster than the winds across the villages and fields. Fishermen by the shore saw its hooves strike sand, and they marveled at how it ran swifter than the tide. Farmers on the plains watched its mane stream like fire, and they whispered that the gods had blessed the earth. Children followed its gallop with laughter, their feet chasing shadows of freedom they had never before imagined. The elders spoke in awe, recalling no tale where Poseidon gave such a treasure freely to humankind. Some said the horse was made of sea foam, born of waves, carrying the spirit of the ocean upon its back. Others claimed it was carved from wind itself, a creature faster than arrows, yet gentler than the morning sun. The truth mattered little, for what people saw was wonder, and in wonder their hearts found joy and courage. No plow had yet been drawn, no cart yet carried, but the horse's strength promised new paths for humankind. Its speed inspired hunters, its power inspired farmers, and its beauty inspired poets to weave verses of glory. Around campfires, mortals began to sing songs, praising Poseidon not as destroyer, but as giver of a marvel. The horse soon became a companion, not only to the strong, but also to the dreamers who longed for freedom. Its gallop became the rhythm of journeys, carrying riders across valleys, rivers, and hills toward new horizons. Where once men trudged for days, now the horse carried them swiftly, turning distance into closeness, struggle into ease. Travelers told of adventures, each tale embroidered with the thunder of hooves echoing across mountains and plains. One village called it Wind Brother, another Earthshaker's Gift, and another simply Friend, for names could not bind it. Mortals saw the horse not as possession, but as partner, a being that shared breath and spirit with its rider. Children grew up dreaming of taming its speed, and elders prayed that each generation might earn its friendship. Festivals were soon born in its honor, with races across fields where laughter and cheers carried far and wide. Bards sang of Poseidon, not for storms, but for the horse, praising the god who gave freedom to mortals. The horse became a bridge between worlds, carrying the touch of divine imagination into the lives of humankind. No temple could contain its spirit, for it belonged not to stone altars, but to open skies and rolling earth. Mortals bowed in gratitude, not out of fear but respect, for the horse had transformed their days and their dreams. And Poseidon, watching from the deep, felt contentment, for his gift was embraced with love, not trembling awe. He saw not mortals kneeling, but rising to explore, to travel, to build, and to hope for more. The horse was more than a beast of burden, more than swiftness or power. It was a promise of tomorrow. It told mortals they were not bound to earth alone, that they too could taste the wind and chase horizons. And as songs of gratitude rose like incense, the horse galloped free, neither chained nor tamed by greed. It ran alongside mortals, not beneath them, and together they shared the journey of life across endless lands. Thus, the horse, gift of Poseidon, became not just a creature, but a companion, a symbol of freedom, eternal. Legends grew with each passing season, for the horse was no longer a creature of wonder, but a thread in mortal life. Poets sang of its freedom, weaving verses where hooves became thunder and manes became banners of the wind. Farmers praised its strength, guiding plows with ease, turning soil richer and faster than hands alone ever could. Travelers hailed its swiftness, for what once was weeks of walking became days of gallop across valleys and rivers. Warriors too admired its power, yet not for battle alone, but for the courage it gave in standing tall. The horse was not just an animal, it was a mirror of spirit, teaching mortals to trust, to endure, to dream. Each village crafted tales of its birth. Some sang Poseidon shaped it from clouds, others from stars that fell. Yet all agreed it was divine, a bridge between sea and land, a reminder that gods and mortals were not so far. Festivals flourished where races were held, not in rivalry, but in joy. As laughter echoed across the open fields, children painted horses on walls, carved them into wood, their images spreading like seeds of inspiration. Even kings sought them, not only for glory, but for the sense of majesty a horse carried beside a throne. Yet the true bond was not of power, but of companionship, for mortals found love in the gentle eyes of horses. They learned that strength could be guided by kindness, that freedom could be shared without chains or cruelty. Songs spread far, carried by merchants and travelers, until the horse became known in lands beyond the Aegean. In distant valleys, people who had never seen the sea now spoke of Poseidon with gratitude and respect. For they saw the horse not as ocean-born, but as Earth's own child, given by a god who bridged two worlds. Generations passed, and still the horse galloped, weaving itself into the fabric of every story mortals told. It became a companion in farming, travel, and journey, a symbol of resilience that endured through every season. When storms broke the sky, mortals prayed not in fear, but with hope, believing Poseidon still watched through the waves. And when dawn broke, they saw horses in fields, grazing calmly, and knew the god's gift was still alive. The horse was no longer myth, but presence, shaping daily life, reminding all that divinity could dwell in kindness. Old men told children, "Remember, this creature is not ours to own, but ours to walk beside in respect." Young hearts listened, their dreams galloping with the sound of hooves that echoed across the years like memory. Every neigh was like a hymn, every gallop like a prayer, carrying voices of gratitude back to the sea. And Poseidon, far beneath the waves, heard those echoes, his heart at peace, knowing his gift had not been wasted. For the horse was not a fleeting marvel, but an eternal bond, one that tied mortals to gods with trust. It was not born for thrones nor temples, but for open skies, fertile soil, and endless horizons to explore. And so the horse lived on, not as legend alone, but as companion, guide, and symbol of freedom everlasting. The story of Poseidon and the birth of horses does not end with gods, nor with the first mortals who beheld them. It flows onward like a river, carried through generations, retold in fields, temples, and quiet fireside whispers. Horses became more than creatures. They became symbols, each step a reminder of freedom, strength, and shared destiny. Every gallop told mortals they were not bound by earth alone, but invited to taste wind and chase horizons. Every neigh reminded them that life itself was a song, a rhythm best lived in harmony, not in fear. Poseidon, far beneath the waves, watched across ages, his heart calm as he saw his gift ripple through time. No storm he cast, no quake he stirred, endured as long as the gift of horses given freely to mortals. For storms end, waves fall, and mountains fade. But the bond of horse and rider carried through centuries unbroken. From Greece to distant lands, the horse journeyed with mortals, carrying dreams, burdens, and stories across endless horizons. It bore kings and farmers alike, poets and travelers, never asking for thrones, but offering companionship and trust. It gave strength to labor, speed to journey, courage to battle, and joy to children whose laughter echoed in fields. The horse stood as testament that even gods, when moved by wonder, could create gifts of beauty, not only power. And in that truth, mortals learned a lesson. Greatness lies not in ruling, but in giving life that others may flourish. The myths say Poseidon still rises with the tide, his eyes reflecting pride as horses run wild along the shore. They say when hooves strike earth with thunder, you can hear the echo of his laughter beneath the crashing waves. Not a cruel laugh, not a boastful one, but the joy of a god who gave something eternal to the world. The horse remains, unchanged in spirit, galloping through centuries as proof that divinity and humanity can share a bond. It does not belong to Olympus nor to mortals alone, but to the wide earth and the endless sky. And so when you see a horse, mane flowing like fire, hooves striking like drums, remember where it began. It was born not of war nor conquest, but of wonder. A god's dream shaped into life upon the sand. Poseidon's gift still lives, not in temples of stone, but in open fields, in forests, and along the shorelines. Its spirit whispers of freedom, telling us all that to live fully is to run forward, unbound, into the wind. The gods may fade from memory, their temples crumble, their statues fall, but the horse endures in flesh and spirit. In every gallop is the memory of sea foam, In every breath, the strength of wind and tide woven together. The horse is living myth, moving through time, carrying mortals not just on earth, but into their own stories. So the tale closes not with silence, but with the steady thunder of hooves, a song that never ends. For as long as horses run, Poseidon's legacy is alive, reminding the world that beauty is the greatest power of all.